Oh, hey, don't mind me, I'm just writing a Percy Jackson sequel. I'm pretty sure all I need to do is change a few words in the original and it'll make a whole new book. What Sea of Monsters?
So, you've just beaten Super Mario Bros. Want to play a sequel? Well, joke's on you, we aren't in Japan. Yes, rather infamously, the direct sequel to the original Super Mario wasn't localized outside of Japan, being exclusive to the region outside of a remake in Super Mario All-Stars for years. Apparently, Howard Phillips, one of Nintendo's consultants, felt the game was a bit too unfairly difficult and unfun, so it probably wouldn't do too well in the market that was still recovering from a major video game crash. However, in 2007, the original game was made available on the Wii's Virtual Console, and ever since, it's been a fairly reliable release on whatever Nintendo's current retro release platform is. So, no physical copy this time for me, but I can play it on Switch Online, so let's play the Lost Levels.
This game better have a good title screen at the very least. Okay, it's better than Mario 1.
Well, we have two options from the start. We can play as Mario or Luigi. That's an interesting idea, and Luigi does play a little differently from Mario. He can jump higher and move a little faster, but he's a lot more slippery, so stopping or reversing momentum is much more difficult. It's a nice trade-off, though I feel like it's not exactly built into the game design all that well. You have to design a level very well for it to be fair to play for two different characters that are this different. Obviously, it doesn't have to be the exact same difficulty for both of them, but there has to be a lot of thought put in to make levels decently playable as both characters.
I don't like this game.
First off, the presentation is exactly the same. Yes, a lot of the individual sprites for tiles are different, the clouds and hills now have eyes, and the blocks are more complicated looking, but it doesn't look better, it just looks more complicated. I feel bad for criticizing the first game's graphics now, because as simple as they were, they all fit together so damn well. Here, it feels like the enemies and ground tiles are from two separate games, because they basically are. Oh, and there's no new music, no new sound effects, it's very much just Mario 1, but with some small tweaks that mostly just make it worse.
And if you're wondering if I'm talking about the presentation or the whole game, the answer is yes.
So, here's the thing. The Lost Levels aren't very fun. The gameplay is the exact same as Mario 1, but the level design is just not as good. The jumps aren't challenging, they're just unfair. The enemies aren't smartly placed as much as they are just kind of spammed, and the whole thing is just filled with design choices made specifically to make the player frustrated, like jumping on a spring going miles into the air where you can barely tell where you are.
For those who've actually watched my Zelda videos, y'all will know what I mean when I say this game reminded me a lot of Four Swords Adventures. You know, the worst Zelda game Nintendo ever made.
There are some interesting new features though, like the poison mushroom. Look, I understand the idea behind this thing, but I'd rather not be punished for hitting the question mark blocks that I'm supposed to hit to play the game. There are also now 5 secret worlds on top of the 8 main ones. For one of these, World 9, you have to beat the game without using any of the warp zones. You know how I praised the warp zones in Mario 1 as one of the smartest additions to the game? How it lets you play all of the game without having to power through all 32 levels all in one go? Well, apparently, that was a mistake, because the only way to get to some of the only actual original levels in the game is to do just that. However, the other 4 worlds are accessed by beating the game 8 times, and at the least you can use warp zones for that one. Still a stupid requirement. At least for the hard mode in Mario 1, you only have to beat the game once. Wait.
What is the point of this game if the original game already had a hard mode? If this is supposed to just be a harder challenge for people who beat the original game, isn't that the literal point of hard mode? What, was it not hard enough because there were only 2 maze levels instead of 5? Because Lord knows, an infinitely looping level until you choose the exact right path is the height of game design!
Okay, let's calm down. I think I understand why they thought this was the best way to make the sequel. It all goes back to the arcades and Atari games. For those of you who've played Space Invaders before, have you ever seen Space Invaders Part 2? Even if you haven't, you have. Pac-Man Plus, Super Pong, these do change things and add things, but they aren't some huge leap as the sequel. They're just the original game, but tweaked. Plus, I mean, the game was originally titled Super Mario Bros. 2, and the box was labeled for Super Players. This isn't like Pikmin 4 where they start the game off with an hour-long tutorial in case players haven't played any of the previous games. The developers figured anyone who would be playing this game would have already beat the original game, possibly multiple times. Hell, millions of copies were sold, and the game was a pack-in for so many NES and Famicom consoles. So the game not being some huge advancement in the series, plus being so much more difficult and unfair, it does make some sense. Still not very fun.
I just don't get this game, honestly. I sort of understand why it's like this, but it's just not fun. I know people in the comments are gonna be like, oh, you're just bad at the game, and that's why you don't like it. Like, yeah, I'm not good at games. I have poor reflexes, bad hand-eye coordination, and I'm impatient. I died a lot in the first Super Mario Bros., but there I could understand why I died, and it felt like my fault. Here I just feel like the game is designed to not be beaten. It's dumb. Plus, like, I'm playing the Switch Online version, so even when I do die, I can just rewind and try again. But at least when I do that with the first game, I still have fun. Here, it just makes it a little bit less annoying. But hey, this is just my opinion, you know? I've never been one for rage games or intentionally hard as nails series. If you think you'll enjoy this game, go ahead and give it a shot. You know, not if you aren't Japanese. I'm glad there is a way for us to play, even if I don't like the game. Still, I'd probably recommend the All-Star version over the original. There, you don't have to beat the game 8 times to access the last 4 bonus worlds. If you'd enjoy this game, have fun. I think this kind of sequel works better for games than for books.